The moment Priya Malhotra's hand touched the exhibition case at Sotheby's London, she knew someone was watching her. Not the casual interest of auction house security, but something sharper, more dangerous. She'd come here hunting rumors of the Crown of Ashoka appearing on the black market, the same crown British officers ripped from her ancestor's head in 1856. What she hadn't expected was the man beside her, dressed in an expensive but understated suit, murmuring about Mauryan dynasty craftsmanship with unsettling knowledge. The metalwork suggests early 3rd century BCE, he said quietly, his eyes never leaving the display. But the gemstone settings were added later, probably during the Gupta period. Priya's journalist instincts screamed danger. This wasn't some wealthy collector making small talk. This man knew too much. Before she could respond, alarms shrieked through the gallery. Interpol agents poured through the doors, shouting about illegally trafficked artifacts. In the chaos, the stranger instinctively shielded her from the surging crowd, moved like someone with military training, not like a civilian at all. When they were separated by authorities, Priya found his dropped phone on the marble floor. She shouldn't have looked, but journalists don't survive on should-haves. The screen showed a photo of the Crown of Ashoka, taken from an angle that could only exist inside a private collection. She pocketed the phone, her heart racing. Who was this man? And why was he hunting the same stolen treasure that had haunted her family for generations? 3 days later in New Delhi, Priya wasn't surprised when she accidentally bumped into him at India Coffee House. She'd traced James Thornton, his alias, through his phone's data. This was her territory now, her city, and she wanted answers. He recognized her instantly. Relief flickered across his face before he could hide it. "Fancy meeting you here," he said with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Cut it," Priya said, sliding into the seat across from him. "What are you really doing in India, Mr. Thornton? Or should I say, what are you really doing hunting the Crown of Ashoka?" For a moment, she thought he might lie. Instead, he leaned back and offered a half-truth. "I'm researching my family's collection for ethical provenance review, trying to return items to their rightful homes." Priya wanted to laugh at the irony. Every British collector claimed they cared now, decades after the theft. But then he quoted her own published article on repatriation, cited specific passages about the trauma of cultural erasure. He'd done his homework on her. "If you really cared," she tested him, "you'd help me expose how the Crown of Ashoka was stolen, how your people took it." His face went carefully blank. She'd struck a nerve. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice low. "What if I told you I could get you access to the original theft records from the British archives, family documents, letters, everything you need for your story? But only if you help me understand where the crown might be now." Priya's editor had given her 2 weeks to break this story or face reassignment to lifestyle pieces about Bollywood weddings. This man, whoever he really was, held keys to locked doors. "Temporary partnership," she said. "You give me documentation, I give you local knowledge. We find the crown together, then we go our separate ways." "Deal." He extended his hand. When she shook it, electricity sparked between them. Not just attraction, though, that was there. Undeniable and inconvenient. Something deeper. Recognition. Like they'd been searching for each other without knowing it. That evening, spread across her coffee table in her Haus Khas apartment, their working chemistry became obvious. She brought moral fire and investigative instincts. He brought strategic thinking and access to colonial records she'd never seen. They debated, challenged each other, built theories together like they'd been partners for years instead of hours. When her grandmother shuffled in with chai, James stood immediately. Something in his posture shifted, became formal. "Namaste, Dadiji," he said in careful Hindi, his respect so genuine it made Priya's throat tight. Her grandmother launched into stories about partition, the violence, the displacement. James listened like every word mattered, asking thoughtful questions, showing more humanity than most British people who looked through Indians like museum pieces. After her grandmother left, Priya studied him. "I didn't expect you to actually see her, to care. My mother taught me that history lives in people, not objects," he said quietly, "though my family hasn't always remembered that." As he left that night, Priya noticed his driver addressing him with unusual deference. Too much respect for a simple researcher. She began to suspect James Thornton was more than a guilty aristocrat trying to clear his conscience. But the real question, the one that kept her awake, was simpler. Why did her heart race every time he looked at her like she was the most fascinating person he'd ever met? Chandni Chowk Market at midday was sensory chaos, spices burning the air, vendors shouting, bodies pressing from every direction. James looked completely overwhelmed, like a man drowning in culture shock. Priya found it hilarious. "Stay close or you'll end up buying fake saffron for 1,000 rupees, she laughed, pulling him away from an aggressive vendor. She negotiated in rapid-fire Hindi, dragging him through narrow lanes he'd never navigate alone. "You're enjoying this," he accused, but he was smiling. "Watching a British man completely out of his element in Delhi, it's basically my dream," she grinned. "Also, that samosa vendor has a line for a reason. Come on." They ate street food sitting on a low wall, and Priya explained everything. The history of each neighborhood, why that temple mattered, what the graffiti meant. He listened like he was memorizing every word, asking questions that revealed he was connecting dots she didn't know she was drawing. When they were separated in the crowd, his immediate panic, quickly hidden but visible to her trained eye, confirmed her suspicion. This man was used to security details, used to being protected. James Thornton was definitely not who he claimed to be. They ended up at Jama Masjid at sunset, sitting on the mosque steps with melting kulfi in their hands. In the golden light, with the call to prayer echoing around them, Priya felt something crack open inside her chest. "My great-great-grandmother was a lady-in-waiting in a royal court," she confessed. "Family legend says she saw the crown taken by British officers. She died before independence, believing it was gone forever. I need to finish something for her. Does that sound crazy?" James was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "My family has portraits of ancestors who collected these treasures. I grew up walking past them, thinking they were heroes of empire. Now I look at those paintings and wonder how many families like yours they destroyed." Priya reached over and squeezed his hand. They sat like that as evening deepened around them, holding hands like it was the most natural thing in the world, like they hadn't just met days ago, like this wasn't impossible. The trail led them to Jodhpur, to the magnificent Murmuring fort. In the palace archives, surrounded by centuries of documents, they worked side by side. Her expertise in Hindi and historical context, his unexpected skills in Persian and colonial administrative records. The intellectual chemistry was electric. They finished each other's sentences, debated interpretations, fell into playful arguments about methodology that felt more like foreplay than academic discussion. During a break, they walked the palace ramparts at golden hour. James kept watching her face as she looked out over the blue city, explaining Rajput warrior queens and resistance movements. His expression was so tender it made her breath catch. "What happens after we find it?" he asked quietly. "After your story breaks?" Priya turned to him, backlit by the setting sun. "I go back to my real life. You go back to Britain. We probably don't see each other again." The thought visibly pained them both. "What if I didn't go back?" His voice was barely audible. It was a fantasy and they both knew it, but Priya leaned into him anyway. Their first kiss tasted like cardamom and longing and things that could never be. The monsoon caught them in Udaipur. They'd checked into separate rooms at a heritage hotel, but ended up in hers, claiming they needed to review documents. Neither was fooling anyone. Rain hammered the windows as they sat on the floor, surrounded by papers, shoulders touching. They talked through the night about everything except the secrets they were keeping. She told him about her failed engagement to a man her parents chose, how journalism saved her from that life. He told her about the suffocation of duty, being the spare, watching his brother prepare for a throne he never wanted. "Do you ever feel like you're playing a role?" he asked. "Like the real you is someone no one's allowed to see?" Priya looked at him with sudden intensity. "Every single day. Until, he prompted. "Until you." They made love as the storm raged outside, and it felt like finally being honest in the only way they knew how. Afterward, wrapped in sheets, James traced the lotus tattoo on her ribcage. "For resilience," she explained, "growing beautiful in muddy water." He wanted to tell her everything then. Instead, he held her tighter, memorizing the feeling of her body against his. In the morning, while James showered, his phone buzzed. Priya saw the message preview. His Majesty's private secretary. Her blood turned to ice. She didn't want to look. She looked anyway. The message referenced Your Royal Highness and the Crown situation. Everything clicked into place. The deference, the security training, the resources, the perfect diplomatic manners. James Thornton was Prince Elijah of Kent, and she'd been sleeping with the enemy. When he emerged from the shower, Priya was sitting on the bed, fully dressed, his phone in her hand. The warmth from an hour ago had vanished. Your Royal Highness. Her voice could cut glass. He went pale. Priya, let me explain. This whole time you weren't here to return the crown. You're here to take it back to Britain, to your family's collection, the family that stole it in the first place. Yes, my family wants it back. There's a coronation, it's ceremonial, but what we have is real. I was going to tell you. When? After you slept with me. After you used my research to steal from my country again. She was shaking. Or were you just going to disappear like every other British royal who took what they wanted? Her phone rang. Her editor. Someone had leaked that she was investigating with a mysterious British royal. The story was breaking, but without the crown's location, she looked compromised. Her career was imploding. James reached for her. Let me help fix this. You've helped enough. Get out. Prince Elijah's protection officers found him within hours. His private secretary appeared on video call, livid. The family had learned through back channels that the crown was possibly in a private collection in Amritsar. They wanted him to acquire it quietly, meaning buy it with royal funds before anyone could claim it. His older brother, the crown prince, was blunt. This isn't about love or justice, Eli. This is about the monarchy not being embarrassed at my coronation. Father is dying. Do your duty. Elijah argued for repatriation, for doing the right thing. His brother cut him off. You've always been too soft. This is why you're third in line. If you can't handle this, come home and we'll send someone who can. Meanwhile, Priya returned to Delhi to face her grandmother, who somehow knew everything. But instead of sympathy, her grandmother revealed the family secret. We are descendants of the Ashoka line, not servants, royalty. Your great-great-grandmother was Princess Amrita, and she watched British officers steal her birthright. The crown belongs to you, Beta, to us. Priya felt her identity shatter. She wasn't just an objective journalist. She was a princess whose inheritance was stolen. Her mother added, if you help that prince take it back to Britain, you spit on your ancestors' graves. That night, Priya called Elijah. They met at India Gate, both exhausted, both having been crying. I found out today that the crown isn't just Indian heritage. It's my heritage, my family's. And you knew. You researched me. I didn't know about your family line, he interrupted desperately. I swear I didn't know. We can't do this, Priya's voice broke. You have a throne to protect. I have ancestors to honor. There's no version where we both win. There has to be, Elijah pleaded. We could find it together, present it jointly to the Indian government. Your family would never allow that. Your family would never forgive you for helping me. They were both right. The silence between them was devastating. 3 days later, they found themselves at the same meeting in Amritsar. The collector, amused by the drama, decided to make it interesting. You both want my crown? Let's have an auction, right now, just you two. Elijah bid first, a staggering sum. Priya couldn't match it, but she had leverage. I can prove this crown was stolen. I can bring international pressure. Or you give it to me, I write a story about a righteous collector who returned it to India, and you become a hero. The collector considered this. Elijah countered, my family will ensure diplomatic protection for your entire collection and triple my original offer. Priya turned to Elijah, eyes bright with furious tears. So this is who you really are. I thought you were different. Elijah looked broken, but resolute. I have responsibilities you can't understand. Don't you dare say you wish things were different when you're choosing your crown over everything we... She couldn't finish. The collector made his decision. He'd accept Elijah's offer. Priya walked out. She'd lost the story, lost the crown, and lost the man she loved, to the same empire that took everything from her family generations ago. She did the only thing left in her power. She published everything. Her article, Prince and the Stolen Crown, a Colonial Love Story, went viral globally. She exposed Elijah's secret mission, the crown's theft history, her own ancestry, and their relationship. The backlash was immediate and brutal. In Britain, tabloids savaged him. Prince's secret Indian lover, royal scandal before coronation. His family was furious. He was ordered back to London immediately. His mother wouldn't speak to him. His dying father said only, "You've made us look like fools and thieves. Both are true, but we don't admit it." In India, Priya became controversial, hailed as a hero by some, condemned by others for having a relationship with the colonizer. Her journalistic credibility was questioned. Her grandmother said heartbreakingly, "I thought you understood what we lost, but you chose him." During a family meeting at Buckingham Palace, Elijah's brother laid it out. "You will issue an apology. You will say she seduced you for the story. You will marry Lady Catherine as planned, or you will be removed from succession and exiled from public duties." For the first time in his life, Elijah refused. No. Priya was right about everything. The crown was stolen. We are thieves, and I love her. I won't destroy her to save our reputation. His mother finally spoke. "Love is a luxury princes cannot afford. Choose her, and you lose everything: your title, your family, your purpose." Elijah's response was quiet, but firm. "What's the purpose of a title built on theft? I'll give it all up if that's what integrity costs." Alone in her apartment, Priya read hate mail and threats. Her editor called, major outlets wanted exclusives, book deals were being offered. She could build a career on this scandal, but her grandmother's words haunted her. "You chose him." In her grief and anger, Priya recorded a television interview. When asked, "Did Prince Elijah manipulate you?" she hesitated just long enough for it to look like, yes. The clip was everywhere within hours. It wasn't what she meant, but the damage was done. A week later, fate intervened at Heathrow Airport. Priya was in London for a book meeting. She didn't expect to see Elijah at a private terminal, but their paths crossed. Their eyes met. Security moved to intervene, but Elijah stopped them. They were given 2 minutes. "I watched your interview," he said hollowly. "Is that what you really think? That I manipulated you? I think you're a prince who wanted a stolen jewel and convinced yourself the girl helping you was a bonus. That's not fair." His composure cracked. "I fell in love with you. Real, terrifying love, the kind that made me question everything. And yes, I should have told you who I was. But don't rewrite what we had. What we had was lies, Eli. Beautiful lies. Then why did you come to London? You could have done that interview from Delhi. Why are you here?" Priya had no answer, or rather, she did. "Because I miss you. Because I'm hoping you'll prove me wrong. Because I'm terrified I destroyed the only real thing I've ever had. Instead, the crown. Where is it?" Elijah pulled out an envelope with legal documents. "I donated it to the National Museum in Delhi, anonymously. It'll be announced tomorrow. My family doesn't know yet. When they find out, I'll likely be formally disinherited." Priya stared, uncomprehending. "You gave it back? But your brother's coronation can happen without a stolen crown? I couldn't live with myself otherwise. You made me see that." Tears streamed down her face. "Eli, you didn't have to. I couldn't be the man you believed I could be while holding on to what we stole from you. I love you more than being a prince, but I know it's too late." Security indicated time was up. "What will you do now?" Priya asked. He looked back with a sad, free smile. "I don't know. For the first time in my life, I have no plan. It's terrifying. It's wonderful." He walked away. Priya stood frozen, realizing she'd been given the rarest gift, a man who chose principle over power, and she was about to let him disappear. 2 weeks later, the National Museum in Delhi organized a massive ceremony for the crown's return. Media from around the world was present. Priya was there as press, but also as a descendant. The museum had verified her lineage and invited her family. Her grandmother stood beside her, tears streaming as the crown was unveiled. "I never thought I'd see it again. Your great-great-grandmother would be so proud." But Priya couldn't focus. She scanned the crowd for a face she knew wouldn't be there. Elijah was probably in London, dealing with fallout. Reports said he'd been removed from official duties, his coronation role reduced to silent presence. The museum director began. This crown returns thanks to an anonymous donor who understood that some treasures belong to the people, not to palaces. Though we cannot name them, we honor their courage in choosing justice over inheritance. In that moment, Priya understood what she'd done. She'd exposed Elijah to save her story, her career, her pride. He gave up everything to do what was right, asking nothing in return. Who really had courage? Who really sacrificed? Her editor appeared beside her. The British palace just released a statement. Prince Elijah has voluntarily stepped back from royal duties to pursue private humanitarian interests. Sources say he was forced out. Priya's heart shattered. She did this. Her article gave them the ammunition. 1 month later, Priya tracked Elijah to a small NGO office in Brixton, London. He was working with an organization focused on colonial artifact repatriation. No title, no fanfare, just work. She stood outside, terrified. When she entered, he was at a desk covered in files, wearing jeans and a sweater. He looked up and the shock on his face mirrored hers. Priya. Her name was a prayer and a question. Hi, can we talk? They went to a small park, sat on a bench. The silence was heavy with everything unsaid. I came to apologize, Priya began, for the interview, for not trusting you. Don't, his voice was gentle. You were protecting yourself, your heritage. I understood, even when it hurt. But I was wrong. You gave up everything. I gave up a life built on theft and lies, Elijah interrupted. That's not sacrifice, Priya. That's liberation. You freed me, she was crying. I broke your life apart. Your family hates you. You lost your title. How is that freedom? He took her hand, the first time they'd touched in months. Because I wake up every morning and look in the mirror without shame. I'm doing work that matters. I'm becoming someone I can respect. That's more valuable than any crown. I was so angry at you for lying about who you were, Priya said. But I lied too. I told myself I was just after a story, that you were just a source. But really? I was falling in love with you and it terrified me. Because you represented everything my family taught me to hate. And now? Elijah asked quietly. Now I've spent 2 months without you. And I finally understand. You're not Britain or the monarchy or the colonizers. You're Eli, the man who listened to my grandmother's stories, who kissed me in the rain, who gave up his inheritance because I made him see it was stolen. She trembled. I love you, not despite who you are, but because of who you chose to become. They went to her hotel room, talked through the night, really talked, without secrets or agendas, processing trauma, addressing hurt, building something honest. This won't be easy, Elijah warned. I have nothing to offer you now. No palace, no status. I'm starting over at 32. Priya laughed. Good. I never wanted to date a prince. I wanted to date you. I'll probably never fully reconcile with my family. Holidays will be complicated. My family has complicated holidays too. My grandmother will interrogate you about British imperialism every time you visit. Can you handle that? I deserve that. His smile was wry. Your grandmother is terrifying. I respect it. They decided to try, really try. No lies, no hidden identities. Long distance at first while Priya finished her book, then they'd figure out where to build a life together. I can't promise you a fairy tale, Elijah said. No carriages, no palaces, no crown. I don't want a fairy tale, Priya replied. Those always involve a stolen princess and a prince who saves her. I want a real story where we save each other. They made love, and it was different from before, slower, sadder, more honest. They were scarred, wiser, and choosing each other with full knowledge of the cost. 6 months later, Elijah's NGO successfully returned a collection of Benin bronzes. Priya covered the ceremony, watching him speak, passionate, knowledgeable, no longer performing royalty but genuinely engaged in justice work. He'd found his purpose. A journalist asked him, "Do you regret leaving the royal family for this work?" Elijah glanced at Priya in the crowd. "I regret the pain it caused. But this work, trying to repair what my ancestors broke, this is the most royal thing I've ever done." In India, the Crown of Ashoka was now the centerpiece of a new exhibit on colonial resistance. Priya's grandmother stood before it with school children, telling them about Princess Amrita, who witnessed its theft. But it came home, she told them. Because even when empires take everything, if you hold on to truth, justice finds a way. In their shared apartment, somewhere between cultures, Priya and Elijah cooked dinner together. She taught him to make proper dal, laughing at his mangled Hindi pronunciation. The walls were covered with both their histories, her family photos, his childhood drawings of palaces he no longer entered. "Do you think we'll always be defined by where we came from?" Priya asked, stirring the pot. Elijah wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I think we'll always be informed by it, but we're not trapped by it anymore." A text arrived from his brother. "Father's funeral is Tuesday. You're not invited officially, but Mother wants you there. Your choice." Priya read it over his shoulder. "Will you go?" "Yes," he said after a moment, not as a prince returning, as a son saying goodbye. "I'll come with you if you want." "To face the monarchy that stole your heritage?" She turned in his arms. "To face them with the man who gave it back, together." The journey to London was heavy with unspoken tension. At the funeral, Elijah stood in the back, no longer in the royal section, Priya beside him, holding his hand. His mother's eyes found them across the cathedral. Anger, grief, and something that might have been understanding flickered across her face before she looked away. After the service, his brother approached them outside. The crown prince looked exhausted, older than his years. "Eli," a pause. "He asked for you, at the end." Elijah's face crumpled. "I didn't know. He said he was proud of you, said you were the only one brave enough to tell the truth." His brother's voice was rough. "I didn't understand then. I'm starting to now." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. That evening, walking along the Thames, Priya asked, "Do you miss it, the life you had?" Elijah considered this honestly. "I miss my family, the parts of them that were real. But the life? The performance? No." He squeezed her hand. "I'd rather have this, walking beside you, doing work that matters, than all the crowns in the world." "Even the Crown of Ashoka?" she teased. "Especially that one. It never belonged to my family. Returning it was just correcting a very old theft." They stopped at a bridge, watching the river flow beneath them. City lights reflected in the water, blurring boundaries between their two worlds. "We didn't get the fairy tale ending," Priya murmured. Elijah kissed her temple. "No, we got something better. We got the truth, and we got to choose each other anyway." Back in their apartment that night, Priya's phone rang. The National Museum was creating a new position, Director of Repatriation Studies. They wanted her expertise, her voice, her family's story. It was everything she'd worked toward. "I'd have to move back to Delhi," she said slowly. "Then we moved to Delhi," Elijah said without hesitation. "Your work is here." "My work is wherever stolen artifacts need returning. Delhi's perfect. Plus, your grandmother will finally get to interrogate me full time." Priya laughed through tears. "You're really willing to leave London? Again?" "Priya, I left the throne for you, for us, for the truth. Moving cities is easy." He pulled her close. "Home isn't a palace or a country. It's wherever I'm brave enough to be fully myself with someone who earned my trust. That's you. That's always been you." 3 months later, they stood in their new Delhi apartment, boxes half unpacked, heat rising from the streets below. Priya's grandmother arrived with enough food to feed an army, immediately putting Elijah to work chopping vegetables while quizzing him about British colonial policy. "So, prince who is not a prince," her grandmother said, "you understand you can never undo what your family did?" "Yes, Dadiji." His Hindi had improved dramatically. "And you know that loving my granddaughter doesn't absolve you of that history?" "Yes." "Good." She patted his cheek with surprising gentleness. "Now you can start the real work. Not for forgiveness, you don't get that, but for justice, for truth. Can you live with that?" Elijah met her eyes steadily. "I'm learning to. Every day." She nodded, satisfied. "Then you can stay." Later, after dinner, after family and laughter and the overwhelming warmth of being welcomed, Priya and Elijah stood on their small balcony. The city sprawled before them, chaotic and beautiful and impossible. "Are you happy?" she asked. He thought about it, really thought about it. "I'm challenged. I'm uncomfortable sometimes. I'm learning to live with guilt and grace simultaneously. I'm building something honest instead of inheriting something stolen." He turned to her. "Yes, I'm happy. Are you?" Priya leaned into him. "I'm with someone who sees me, who chose justice over comfort, who walks into my grandmother's interrogations voluntarily." She smiled. "Yes, I'm happy." They stood there as Delhi's night sounds rose around them. Auto rickshaws honking, street vendors calling, the distant sound of Bollywood music from a neighbor's radio. This was home now, not because it erased the past, but because it honored it while building something new. "Do you think we'll ever stop being a scandal?" Priya asked. "Probably not. Former prince with Indian journalist who exposed his family's theft? We're tabloid gold forever." "Good," she said firmly. "Let them talk. Let them remember. Every time they write about us, they have to write about the crown, about repatriation, about what was stolen and what we're trying to repair." Elijah kissed the top of her head. "When did you become so strategic?" "When I fell in love with a prince and had to figure out how to keep him honest." "And how's that going?" She turned in his arms, kissing him deeply. "So far, so good." In the distance, fireworks exploded over the Red Fort, someone's wedding or festival or a simple celebration. Priya and Elijah watched them bloom against the dark sky, two people who crossed every line their histories drew, who chose each other over crowns both stolen and inherited. Not all treasures taken can be returned, but all truths hidden can be spoken. And sometimes, love is the most revolutionary act of repatriation, choosing to give back the humanity that empire tried to steal. They didn't get a fairy tale. They got something real. They got justice and honesty and the freedom to build a life on their own terms. They got each other, and that was worth more than any crown.